I guess you can call me a roller coaster enthusiast. This means every year I travel unreasonable distances for these rides. This year I went to 8 parks and brought my credit count up to the double digits, 68. So today I'll be taking a look at my favorites out of those. This is my top 25 roller coasters, 2022 edition. Starting off the list is the Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is possibly the roughest ride I've ever been on, but it's such a fun experience. It's full of airtime and speeds through all of its hills. I got 2 or 3 rides on this on my trip over there, and I wish I could have gotten more. It's just so fun. Following up is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This intimate prefabricated wooden coaster is no joke. While I was somewhat let down by it, it's still a great ride, but I rode it about a month before its latest accident, so maybe it wasn't running its best. The drop and camelbacks are easily the highlight of the ride, but personally I didn't care much for the rest of it. Adding on to being so close to the accident, I did only get 1 ride as soon as the park opened, so I'm excited to try it again next year after it had a chance to warm up. Hopefully the retrack fixes the roughness as well. El Toro's next door neighbor, Medusa, takes the 23rd spot. I only got 1 ride on Medusa as well, but it was much later in the day and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't too forceful and has the usual B&M looper layout, but I just found it really fun. And I can't wait to get back on it next summer when I visit Great Adventure again. Superman Ultimate Flight is a B&M flying coaster that is copied and pasted at 3 different Six Flags parks. I have not been on the Great America clone, but I have been on the Great Adventure clone and the original at Over Georgia. While I enjoyed the Great Adventure one, the Over Georgia one puts it to shame. The terrain makes such a difference, it makes the ride so much more enjoyable. I'd probably find it more tame after being on Tatsu, but I love flying coasters. So I hope one day soon I can get back to Over Georgia and ride this again. My last ride on my trip to Magic Mountain was Full Throttle, and I enjoyed it so much I forgot that I waited 30 minutes because it has 1 train ops. This Premier Rides creation doesn't have a weak moment. As someone who doesn't care for hang time, I really enjoyed it on this ride. The loop and dive loop are insane when it comes to hang time, and all 3 launches are powerful. While being trimmed, the drop is still great. Hoping for at least 2 train ops during my next visit because I would love to ride this again and again. I have not been to Universal Studios Hollywood since 2018, but I still remember how much I loved Revenge of the Mummy. I'll have to get a re-ride, but I love the launch and all the theming throughout the ride, and the backwards portion is always great. I really hope to get back to this ride and park soon because another visit has been long overdue. Going back to Great Adventure, the Jersey Devil coaster takes the 19th spot. While this is the weakest RMC I've been on, I still loved it. I had 4 rides in the front and back, and I am in a desperate need for a re-ride because another coaster on this list. But I still think it's a solid ride and makes that portion of the park just so much more fun. The New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas takes the 18th spot. This is a weaker RMC, but it still rides so well. While it's not as intense as others, it still doesn't have a dead spot on the ride. I've gone on this both front and back, and it's great in both. If you haven't ridden this, I'd recommend it any day. I absolutely adore this ride. The Giant's next door neighbor is the Giovanola Hyper Titan. At first glance, this looks like just a clone of Goliath at Magic Mountain, but with almost the same layout, Titan is able to do so much more. The drop is better, the airtime hill actually gives airtime, and it's way more intense, and maybe the most intense roller coaster I've been on, and I wish it was the Hyper at my home park instead of Goliath. Back to Great Adventure with Jersey Devil's next door neighbor, Nitro. This B&M Hyper is old but still packs a punch. I only got 1 ride on this in the front, but it gave great airtime throughout and has a really intense helix in the middle. Nitro is probably the second best at the park and is really slept on. You can never go wrong with a B&M Hyper. Batman the Ride at many Six Flags parks is B&M's inverted prototype. I've been on 4 of these and they are all great. I'll be referring to the Over Texas clone because I believe that's the best I've been on because it has the best theming. It's not that big and is pretty short, but uses every second of ride time to give an out-of-control experience. My nose actually started bleeding after my first ride on this. You can't beat a classic, and a classic is what the Coney Island Cyclone is. The Cyclone doesn't have any crazy stats, but it has great airtime and insane laterals. It's one of the best experiences I've had on a roller coaster, and I'm not sure if it's open at the moment, but I'm thinking of going down to Brooklyn to ride it as I write this video. Kingda Ka takes the crown for Great Adventures roller coasters. The tallest and second fastest roller coaster in the world is something everyone needs to experience at least once. The launch is unreal. It's what I'd imagine takeoff on an F-16 is like. The view at the top of the almost 500-foot tower is amazing, and the drop is honestly underwhelming, but the rest of the ride is insane. If you can only do one ride at Great Adventure, this is the one to ride. Stealing the 12th spot is Six Flags New England's Intamin Hyper, Superman the Ride. This is the best Superman themed ride. It's unbelievable. It's pretty compact, and that leads to some great moments, tons of airtime, and a bunch of tunnels. While I don't think it's the best roller coaster out there, I can definitely see why it has won the award so many times. Barely missing the top 10 is X2, the Aerodynamics 4th Dimension coaster. This ride is very, very flawed and very clearly a prototype, but it's an unreal experience you won't find anywhere else outside of Asia. It beats you up a bit near the end, but it does have the best drop on any roller coaster I've ridden, and that was worth the over 2-hour wait alone. Kicking off the top 10 is the final wooden coaster on the list, Apocalypse, originally Terminator Salvation the Ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It pretty much has all the Terminator theming still without the actual Terminators. The actual ride is fast and out of control. There's not a dull moment on this thing. And even though it had one train ops, I was very happy with my ride. Magic Mountain's 20th coaster, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, is the successor to the Jersey Devil coaster and does everything so much better. The drop is unreal in the back. It's smoother and it's whippier. And I waited a good hour for this ride, but it was definitely worth it. Going back to Georgia, we have Goliath at number 8. Easily the best traditional hyper I've been on. The airtime is great, the helix is intense, there isn't a dull moment on this thing. Once again, I wish this was the hyper at my home park. Topping off over Texas is the former Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast, now just Mr. Freeze. Is it not clear I like Premier rides? In reverse, Mr. Freeze was an insane experience. The launch is powerful and every moment is intense. The 200-foot spike is the highlight of the ride and one of the best drops I've been on. I'd kill for something like this closer to home. That is operating. Premier barely misses the top 5 with their final coaster on the list, West Coast Racers at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This dueling coaster is just so fun. It has insane ejector on the high 5 element. The launches are great. Everything about it's just so fun, and I can't wait to get on it again, hopefully soon. B&M takes the 5th spot with their flying coaster Tatsu at Magic Mountain. I only got on this once, but it was a night ride during Fright Fest, and it is a contender for the best experience I've had on any ride ever. Words cannot describe what this ride is like at night, and it's something I'd recommend to anyone and everyone. RMC grabs the 4th spot with Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. If there's any proof that size does not matter, this ride proves it. The drop is insane, one of my favorite drops on any ride. The reverse Cobra roll is great. The wave turn is unreal. Everything about this ride is great. Once again, I've been saying it a lot about a lot of the rides, but all these rides are great. There is not a dead moment on this thing, and it has some of the best airtime on any ride I've been on. This was my number 2 coaster for the summer. That is until I went on the next few. Canyon Blaster at the Adventure Dome is an Aerodynamics custom looper, and it has the usual layout, but it does it so well. Being one of my first coasters, you can say nostalgia is the reason it's so high on the list, but having been on it fairly recently, I can tell you it's not that. Not only does it have great theming with the canyon setting of the Adventure Dome, every element hits. The double loops make me gray out. The drop gives pretty good airtime. The corkscrews and helix are great. And oh my god, this banked hill before the corkscrews gives some of the most intense airtime I've ever experienced. This hill should not exist. It's unreal. Aero grabs the number 2 spot with the Mega Looper Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. You see, I love arrows, but I've barely been on any, so it's hard to call myself an arrow stan. But the ones I've been on are unreal. Viper is so underappreciated, it's really smooth for what it is. The same goes for Canyon Blaster. Viper has one of my favorite drops, ever. It is insane. The videos do not do it justice. It's one of those rides where it's worth it for the drop alone. The triple loops are great, and the airtime going into the mid-course is crazy. The second half is great as well. The corkscrews are great, the Batwing is fun no matter where you sit on the train. This ride is just great. And I wish less people would listen to all the hate it gets because this ride is something special. It's already being treated very well by the park, but reworked trains with lap bars would also fix a lot of complaints, and people could enjoy it without the very little headbanging it currently has. Finally, at the number 1 spot, Magic Mountain's RMC, Twisted Colossus. This ride is something else. It's everything I love about Twisted Cyclone on an even larger scale. Great drops, great airtime, great everything. While I wish it dueled every time, this ride is still great without the duels and will likely stay my number 1 for a long time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out this short video I made on block zones. I also have a bucket list coasters video coming out in the next few days, and I'm working on a video on the new Texas Giant, coming out soon too. So feel free to stick around and check those out.